Aloha and bienvenidos, beautiful souls. This is Maria Lupita Gurule, and it's March 11th, 2022. March 11th already. I promise I'm going to get to explaining where I've been these last 3 to almost 4 months, but we have a lot to get to today. And today's most important topic is what can we do when we feel hopeless and helpless with everything that's happening in the world? So let's just jump right in. It's most appropriate to explain in this moment that upon the earth plane, there is energy, an energy field in which all of humanity is inter and intra connected into. Quantum physics states that energy does not end where the end of my skin is, that our energy does extend and permeate and blend with all that is. There truly is indeed an energy in which all of humanity is inter and intra-connected into. We couldn't separate ourselves from this field of energy even if we wanted to. That is probably the number one thing that is most misunderstood and not explained. It is the field of energy that gurus and mystics are talking about when they talk about the field, the quantum field, or any other words such as that. It is also our point of attraction and other various terms that you may have heard about. There is a field of energy that all of humanity, that every single one of us contributes to. That if you were to do some research with what's known as random number generators, you will actually see that at times of heightened distress upon the planet, that those random number generators will oftentimes come into a sense of coherence, meaning that there is something greater, that they're not so random, that it is showing that there is something that is happening upon the planet and the consciousness of the planet that is measurable and has an impact on those devices. It's extraordinary. Every single one of us has such unique and extraordinary power within us. Every single one of us has all of the massive power and life force within us. That is the part of us that is here while we are in this incarnation, alive in these bodies. That unique consciousness, and how we manage or don't manage that consciousness matters. Because there is that grid upon the planet, every single one of us contributes to it. And so, if there are millions of people upon the planet that are in a heightened state of distress and fear, it's felt. There has an impact on the world. If you do some further research into how our consciousness and how our intentions and vibrations actually impact our environments, I invite you to look up any information on Dr. Masaru Emoto. He did many different studies on how our thought and consciousness, our vibrations and intentions can actually impact water and water molecules. It's fascinating work. Those are just certain demonstrations that I'm mentioning to explain this energy that we are all part of. So, what can we do? Me, myself, by myself, alone. I might feel so hopeless and helpless as if I can do nothing. That thought alone might instigate and trigger a whole set of anxiety and other stress factors and other triggers and memories that might spiral me down into an absolute plate of distress. When we do that, we contribute fear and distress upon the planet, and it has a ripple effect that we all can feel. However, on the converse, if we are able to do the opposite, if we are able to hold ourselves in a centered, grounded state, feeling calm and grounded, feeling a state of faith versus fear, of love instead of anger, of compassion instead of intolerance. We contribute an energy of love upon the planet that can overcome the fear. When there are two opposite frequencies at each opposite end, fear and love, these two together can ripple and have an effect. If fear is on one side and love being on the other, when we are able to emit and emote enough of a frequency of love, that love can counteract that level of fear. This is known in the science of sound as destructive interference. When you have a particular frequency, a sound that is being emitted at a particular frequency, when you emit its exact and equal and opposite frequency, they actually cancel each other out. Destructive interference. Isn't that interesting how our energy of love can destruct the energy of fear? And that is truth. Every single person who is able to overcome a sense of fear and bring in a sense of connection instead contributes to this grid that I've discussed upon the planet. For every single one of us who is able to connect to and feel and emote and ripple out a sense of love, of tolerance, of compassion, of faith, we can overcome. But what happens is that in this day and age, all of our media and everything that is out there is all designed to create its opposite, fear. When we do not like what we are experiencing in our world, we have to understand that the power lies within us to change it. We may feel so helpless and hopeless to change the world because you can't. You cannot change the world from an outside perspective. Every single one of us is here to create that change from within. The perfect example of trying to create change by changing others is exactly what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. It is those that are trying to exert force and fear to make those succumb to their will. And that is an impossibility for these divine incarnations and these lives that we are living. Every single one of us has been given free will and choice at this time and place while we are incarnate on these earth planes. And we each have a responsibility to how we engage in the world. We can feel someone who is carrying intense negative anger, intense negative energy, and we know the quality of a person by how we feel when we are around them and how we feel after being in their presence. So when we are around someone, we can feel them. We can feel their vibrations and their energy before they even speak a word. Do they make you feel depleted and drained after being in their presence? Or do they make you feel uplifted and hopeful? We are each responsible for the energy that we contribute to this world. If we understood how powerful that is and how that creates our reality, every single one of us would be making that our priority. Your power to create your reality lies within yourself by what we choose to think and feel through the management or mismanagement of our mind. Every time that I am feeling a state of distress, I am constantly reminded to manage my mind. We have monkey minds. Our minds, our egoic mind, is rampant. It is like a temper tantrum child, completely unrestricted, undisciplined, and running wild and rampant and absolutely creating chaos in our life because of the things that we think and the things that it causes us to feel. We must learn to manage our mind. Is your mind where your body is? Is what you're thinking what's actually happening around you? Where or when are you? That's the first thing that we must check in with ourselves. When we bring ourselves to the present moment, we begin to observe ourselves. We become what I call the sacred observer. When we're able to observe what is happening around us, we are able to have greater understanding to create change within ourselves. If we are not liking what we are experiencing, we have the ability and the power to change it. We have the power within ourselves to create our reality. So when we are feeling hopeless and helpless, what can we do? The very first thing is to stop and observe ourselves. What am I thinking and feeling in this moment? Am I feeling at ease and peace? Am I feeling stress, distress, anxiety, depression, worry, tension, fear? If I'm feeling these things, what am I thinking, feeling, or doing that was causing these things? If you can identify the source, I started to watch that. And when I started watching it, it created fear inside of myself. So now I know the cause. Stop watching it. I know that it's happening out there, but I don't have to actively engage in it. I can know that it is there without it having to evoke more fear. I know that it's there, but I don't have to contribute to this chaos that is happening in the world because of it. Pay attention to what we're feeling. And then once we're able to identify what was I doing, thinking, feeling, speaking at the time that I wasn't feeling good, and then change it, and then avoid those things. Now, it's not about apathy. It's not about feeling like, oh, well, that's not affecting me, so I'm just going to disconnect from it. We can't, because we again are part of humanity. By nature and by our design, we are meant to feel and empathize and connect with others. And in fact, we have what's called mirror neurons. If there is somebody in front of us who is physically feeling pain and we begin to see them, our body automatically responds in same and in like through mirror neurons. And we've even heard of sympathy pains for women who are pregnant and their husbands begin to feel, the part of those symptoms, either morning sickness or even physical pains, because they are sympathy pains. We are meant to be connected, interconnected. We feel it and we can't disconnect from it. So apathy doesn't work. So what is it instead? It's about empathy. I can understand, even though I can imagine how that may feel, I can empathize. And when we are able to go into a place of holding love, even through pain, that we can bring love into that experience, and it could be a healing salve, a comforting feeling that can begin to permeate and exist within ourselves. We can grow that sense of grounded connection by monitoring what we think and feel and making those adaptations, those corrections, modulations to help us. When we are able to calm and quiet our mind enough, we are able to listen. There is a life force within us, a divine life force that is part of us, that is us, our true essence. There is that divine part of ourselves, and then there is our overlaying personality, likes, dislikes, behaviors, our personality. But beyond our personality is our life force. a divine spark of being, that if we learned how to connect to it, it is deep within ourselves. It is like this intense energy and flame of existence that animates us. It is our consciousness. Our life force, consciousness, is the part of us that vacates when we pass. When we can tap into that and understand that connection, we can begin to listen. We can begin to alter our thoughts and also harness and try to enhance and develop thoughts that feel better. We are connected. We are healing. I bring in love. I call in peace. When we are able to feel a sense of peace within our immediate self, within our environment, we ripple it out across the planet. And that energy is what I'm talking about that we can create, that is the destructive interference of fear, where our sense of calmness, connection, oneness can overcome fear. And many of us, when we're able to go into that quiet place within ourselves, we can listen for the guidance. We might get an inspiration, an instinct, or a tugging to do, to have some action, to actually create a physical change. We might be called to even travel in those directions or to do something locally to assist and help. You will heed the quiet voice within. Mhm. Now, that is an entirely different place of power. That is what creates our reality. That is what we each can do. We are all here meant to manage ourself. Which brings me exactly to what happened to me. What was happening within my experience in my world was this preparation period of releasing old patterns and programs that were occupying too much of my time, space, and energy. I have been, since the summertime, with intention, absorbing light of the sun, increasing my vibration, attuning to nature, because every single one of us has been feeling this intensified energy, especially through the pandemic. Why is all of this happening on the earth plane? Well, in order for things to shift and change, all of the old structures must break down. Before we can bring newness into our experience, we have to release the old. If we want to think and feel and experience in a new way, we have to learn how to stop thinking and feeling and experiencing in the old way. So, back in October, November, I was purging a lot, was really given opportunities and challenges that made me face my own shadow. In facing myself, a lot was stirred up within myself, and I was in a safe place to be able to release those shadow parts of myself. Shadow parts of ourselves are the pain and the other parts of ourselves that we carry, that are still within us, that have an influence, and that we may not necessarily be fully aware of. They act out and they play themselves out through our relationships and other things that we are experiencing in our world. So the months of September, October, November was about releasing, cleansing, and healing for me. And because I was in the mode of that absolute intense releasing, I was in circumstances that did not feel good vibrationally. And through there, there was a lot of energy that came up, some depression, some anger, some other emotions and anxieties that needed to be released within myself. And it was during one of these particular episodes that I happened to experience a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, which is also a type of stroke. I was super fortunate that mine was extraordinarily mild. What it was discovered and shared with me through my healthcare team was that the National Health Institute has a scale of stroke assessment to determine the severity because they can be so far ranging. So from a scale of 0 all the way up to 42, they're able to determine the level and magnitude. Mine was determined only to be at a level 3. It lasted but a mere few minutes. And for others, it may last far, far longer, with other residual effects depending on underlying chronic conditions. That was a huge awakening for me. These are the things that we need to be made aware of so that we can be healthier within ourselves. These are communication from our bodies. These are indicators of the things that we need to release and let go of. If we allow those dormant shadows to be hidden within ourselves, they will come out and act out within our physical bodies to give us the message. Mine happened to give its message through that transient ischemic attack. Again, mine only lasted but a few minutes. And through that NIH um, stroke assessment, I was able to determine how mild mine actually was. So fortunately, I did not experience another because I understood what it was. It requires that we make changes within ourselves so that we can better manage anxiety, stress, depression, and anger, and other things that come up within ourselves so that we could be healthy. So that is what was happening within myself in those months. And what I understood within that, it was an opportunity to discover the very first layer or first cause of suffering. And that first cause of suffering is a feeling of separation. Its opposite is understanding, and what heals it is unity, feeling our connection. And so, through the months of September, October, November, healing myself, coming into myself, releasing old patterns and programs to allow myself to have space for more energy to come in, this higher quality vibration and energy to come in. When we release those heavy shadow portions of ourselves, it gives us greater ability for clarity, a greater capacity to hold more light, if you will. But we must be careful here to understand that our light is not meant to obliterate and destruct our shadows and our darkness. What they are meant to do is bring awareness of them so that we could manage them, work it, and heal it. So it's not enough just to feel it to heal it. We must first feel it. Then we've got to work it, which means doing our healing, looking at ourselves, doing the tough work within ourselves, forgiving others, changing programs, changing the patterns within ourselves so that we don't keep repeating those same things. And that gave me enough capacity to bring myself back into a centered place, a grounded place, to bring in more energy so that I can continue to apply these things. I walk the talk. These are things that I don't just speak of in theory or in practical philosophical terms. These are actual activities of faith, doing our work, activities of living that help us to feel better. When we're able to do these things for ourselves, we can show up in a better way in the world. So, by having enough grounding for myself, it gave me enough room to be able to shift into the next phase of continuing to apply these things. When life throws us for a loop within ourselves, we can manage it. If it's our own health, our own issue, our own set of circumstances within ourself. But what happens when it's outside of ourself through someone else? We still must learn how to stay grounded, balance, learn our role, not take on the lessons of another. And that is what led me into the month of December. So, in the month of December and part of January, part of November even, was about assisting my adult son access services. I have been given permission to share his experience so that in so might be able to help others. He reached out to me to let me know that he was really having a lot of difficulty and was ready to receive help. We had been sensing and feeling this and had been talking about it for a few months, and when he was finally ready, without me pushing him, came forward and asked for assistance. I was very fortunate that it was open enrollment during that time, so I was able to assist him in applying for Family Medical Leave Act, for gaining medical insurance and accessing medical insurance as well as dental. So we were able to have multiple appointments to get all of the medical and dental appointments that he needed to get himself to feel better. And then we were able to access care. He confided within me that he had been having such a difficult time within these last 2 years that he needed support for his mental well being and his emotional well being. So we were able to get him into a care facility where he is receiving the support and the services that he needs. You've heard me mention before that it's super critical that if we need help and assistance by care professionals, it is critical and necessary. And may they teach us the tools to apply in life to feel better. So the months of part of November, December, and part of January was helping my adult son, was helping me to understand my role in helping another in their life. Now, this was really critical in the month of December. It was an extremely low moment that where he felt the absolute dire need and necessity for help. In that moment, it reminded me of a previous experience that I had with my son over 8 years ago. My son is extraordinarily sensitive and he has an incredible ability to be empathic. He's extraordinarily gifted. Now, I have these abilities because I had a near death experience. Well, my son had to be resuscitated at the moment of his birth. And his experience has been extraordinary in this earth. I learned so much through him that helped prepare me for my NDE a couple of years later. Now, because my son is so extraordinarily gifted, so open, he feels the world so heavy. And about 8 years ago, he again confided, and it came forward that he was having suicidal ideation. Our young people, adults for that matter, don't even have the coping skills to cope with life, how to manage our feelings, our emotions, and how to handle things when life throws us for a loop. Luckily, our environment, our relationship, and my commitment to helping others put me in the perfect position to be able to assist him. But the first time that I experienced it, I did not understand correctly, which really was about learning the law of allowance. In my fear those 8 years ago, that those many ages, the prospect of my very young son at that time contemplating suicide because the world was too heavy at that moment was so overwhelming to me that I did not understand how to show up in that event. And from that experience, I was begging and pleading and praying to God to please let me take this. Let me help him. Let me do this because I can. And I was in such a state of distress, so overwhelmed beside myself, as any parent should be. My prayer trying to take it from him so that he would not have to experience that. While it was while he was receiving observation, he had been admitted and was in a week-long observation at that moment, and 3 days into it, after my prayer going to bed that evening to let me take it from him, in the morning, when usually my guidance comes from this quiet place of being half awake and half asleep, I felt this overwhelming sensation and a booming voice. Who do you think you are? You rob him of his soul's lesson. When you take that on as your own, you remove his soul's growth and rob him of his soul's growth. Who do you think you are? Know your role. Every time you interfere and intervene and interrupt by trying to take it on as yours inappropriately, we have to recreate another set of circumstances for his soul's growth and his learning. You can be there for him, guide him, help him, teach him, but you cannot do it for him. And what I understood in that moment is that we cannot walk the path of another. Paths might be similar, but we cannot do it for them. My prayer changed. Dear God, please give me the courage to let him and the strength to help him when he's ready. That is the greatest challenge. When we try to control circumstances or others and try to control their choices, it creates a whole complicated set of circumstances that is absolutely inappropriate for us, that causes suffering not only for us but for the other. Now, of course, we have a role and an obligation to show up in that, to offer up guidance and assistance, to intervene when necessary. What I meant by interrupting, intervening, and interfering, it was because I was a helicopter parent at the time, trying to ensure that everything was going to be okay, and as if I could live their life for them. That creates a lot of distress for our young people because they must learn resilience. They must learn struggle. They must learn at an early age how to problem solve and how to understand that life is not absolutely perfect and that we can give them the coping skills to learn to deal with it. So obviously, my now adult son did survive that experience back then, but it took a lot of trials for us to understand exactly how our roles are to be. So, the best way that I can describe it is that we have an absolute obligation to provide as much assistance as possible with boundaries and also giving them and allowing them their lesson without taking it on as our own. We have our own life's lessons, much less taking on the lessons of another soul. That soul is here. Even the souls, especially the souls of our children, are here to learn and grow. It is not my job as a parent to mold them into my image or what I think. It is my job to be here to allow them to become the people that they are already and that they are meant to be. Just because they're young people does not mean that they don't have their soul's purpose. Young bodies does not equal inferior or less than. We are not above them in any way whatsoever. Little bodies, equal souls. They have their own free will and choice. They came into this world with a life and a purpose that they are meant to fulfill. And it is our job to assist them in discovering what that is and to help them become that, not to add all of our obligations, all of our mm, biases. They are not here to live our life. So when we try to push our child to live in a particular way that we wanted because we never would is inappropriate. And to try to take their pains away is also inappropriate. Yes, of course, we have an obligation to be there for them. Absolutely. That is a must. But the best way to put it is that if I have a child and they're here to learn their lessons, I cannot do it for them. So the more that I do my child's math homework for them, the less they're going to learn. And when it comes time to that test, they're not going to be able to pass it because I've done the homework for them. They're the ones that have to pass the math test. Everything in life is similar to that. So as I fast forward now in this day and age, helping my son receive the services that he needed, the moment that we arrived at that care facility, I could not be the one to walk in the door for him. He had to. I could not be the one to talk to the therapists and the counselors. He had to. I cannot go to the bathroom for them. They have to. I can't eat their food for them, digest their food for them. They have to. That is their living. And they're making their soul's decisions and choices and feeling their pains is just as equal as that. It is part of them. It is necessary for them. And it is not ours to take it on as our own. We have a role to play within their experience, but we are not to take their experience from them. And that is where wisdom comes in. No matter how much I think I know better, how much I know better, the only reason I know better is because I myself have gone through that experience. I had the gift and the ability to learn and grow from that experience. And when we do not allow them their trials, we rob them of their growth. They will never be able to come to that wisdom within themselves unless we allow them to earn it. So that is where I was in part of November, December, and then part of January. Because of my own intense healing and also helping and assisting another was a massive exertion of a lot of energy, which left me kind of depleted, which brings me into the month of January. So I was able to recover, able to reground, reconnect, apply the tools for living that I had learned, learning how to let go of control of another's choice, letting go of control of the circumstances, and trusting the process of life. So able to come back, reground and heal myself for a while. I began to record another video on January 31st, 2022. I started to discuss these things that I've mentioned in this video. And that video on January 31st changed my life. Two things happened in that video that are extraordinary and profound that I will never be the same from. So let me just show you what it is. Pretty incredible, right? When I watched that video back, it was incredible to see and observe what was happening in this area. And what caught my attention to that area is because of what happened in the next moment. Pay special attention to this area in the video. The image that I just showed is me creating a sliver of the image of the Blessed Mother, and I superimposed it in that area to show emphasis of what I recognized in that area. In that moment, it seems as though it is a reflection of the Blessed Mother, La Virgencita, that is there on the poster that I have. It appears as though somehow this reflection is being caught on this camera in this area. But what happens next is profound. God is not giving us lessons that we have to endure. Again, absolutely miraculous. A miracle captured on film. That to think about what might be caught in this particular area. But what draws my attention the most is to contemplate that energy that emanates from this area, comes into focus, changes directions, and enters. So let me show that one more time. and use your eyes. See with your heart so that you can make up your own decision of what is happening here. All I can say is that I felt it in the moment, and it is profound that it is being given at that exact moment with that specific message, because that is what I needed to hear the most. Mm. God is not giving us lessons that we have to endure. It is something that we must learn how to cope with life. Amazing. I needed that in the moment because of what happened next. About 5 minutes after that recording, I'm going to fast forward to the very end of the recording, and what you're going to see is me becoming distracted and losing my train of thought. It appears as though I become distracted with the dog coming into the frame, but what you're going to see me doing is my eyes capturing my attention from the corner of my computer screen as well as the bottom here on where I have my telephone. And what was happening in this next moment is my brother and sister frantically getting a hold of me. So when I was dealing with my own health, it was a set of circumstances that were somewhat in a sense of control for myself. Oh my gosh. I will never be the same after that because my oldest brother, Sebastian Eugenio Gurule Sr., passed away on January 31st, 2022, as I was recording that video. It is therefore mine not to speculate what particularly was there. I know what I felt. I know what I experienced. And I know what was captured. I know what was in my heart. So on January 31st, 2022, my brother passed away. And I spent the entire month of February regrounding, regrouping, being with my family, planning the services. He had an extraordinary service. One soul upon this planet makes a difference, which brings us to the very topic of this video. What can we do when we feel so hopeless and helpless in this world? But I can tell you that one soul makes a huge difference. My brother was the most honorable man I know. It was completely unexpected. He was only 50 years old, and it happened during his exercise. I'm not one to speculate, to assume, or to know, but I feel it is in that moment that I am reminded of my experience, the bliss and the peace and the love that I felt when I was on the other side through my near death experience. I am reminded about death through my living. While I am here living, I'm trying to apply the things that I learned through dying. How ironic. So, all of these things are about the prospects of living and dying and how we live while we are here because it matters. What we do, what we say, what we think, and what we feel matters. Everything comes from within ourselves. Our power lies within ourselves. So, what can we do in this time when on the other side of the planet there is the prospect of World War III, when so many of us are feeling like we're living World War III? That is what we need to understand in this moment. Every single one of us has an extraordinary power within ourselves that contributes to the planet. There is a grid of energy upon this planet, as I have already mentioned, that is palpable and felt. every single one of us who is able to come into a grounded and centered, calm state of peace within ourselves contributes to the world. One person who is able to emit and emote that can actually confront and cancel that out, those that are feeling fear. It is up to every single one of us to live our lives in the best way possible so that we can contribute to the healing of the planet. And so my experience through understanding that with my brother, with my son, and even with myself brings me to the third cause of suffering, which is denial. And the way that we overcome that denial is by acceptance. Our ability to accept what is. When we deny what is happening in our environment and is not able to process it, we are skewed from our ability to feel and to really dig deep within ourselves of that level of experience of acceptance. It is through the law of acceptance, accepting what is, that gives us the ability to overcome that suffering. So the three causes of suffering is first and foremost separation, control, and then the denial. And the ways that we overcome these three causes of suffering are learning these principles and laws for living, which is connection, unity, oneness, our ability to allow ourselves to live while allowing others to live. I may not make those same choices, but they're not mine to make. I am not living their life for them, so that is not mine to make. Every single person is born with the sanctified, God-given gift of free will and choice in every moment. When we try to exert our control over someone else by trying to force them to think or do what we want them to do, we actually create an act of violation of that sacred gift that was given. Every person has the ability to do that and choose that for themselves. Just like you do not want your choices taken away, nor do you want to have others tell you how to live, you have that ability within yourself to allow. And that's what's happening on the other side of this planet right now. It is control, it is separation, and it is also, which brings us again to the third denial. The way that we overcome denial is through that law of acceptance. Living the law of acceptance, the law of allowance, and the law of unity and oneness brings us all back together. And that is what it's about. When each of us are able to contribute that to the planet, we add that vibration. We are able to contribute to that grid. For every time that we are able to heal ourselves within, we add to the healing of the planet. We cannot heal from the outside. It must be done from inside. So every single one of us must go through this path that I have described, that I've gone through over these last 6 months, facing ourself, facing others, and then learning our place in the world. So, by understanding these things can bring us back into ourselves, can reconnect us to that divine spark that is within us. And that is our purpose at this time. So, it's been a long 3 months. I thank you all for being here. I thank you for allowing me to share my personal experience in the hopes that I can help others. The thing that is getting me through this is my deep sense of faith. Faith in a trust, and it's not blind faith. Faith oftentimes comes through that moments of grace, through the moments of utter surrender. Faith is gained when we are willing to let go. But oftentimes we get to those places through our trials. Our trials give us challenges that serve purpose to help bring us into ourselves, connect to that deep place within. And the way that we grow our faith is by understanding that we are part of something that is greater than ourselves. Even when there appears to be absolute chaos around us, and it feels like the world is in chaos right now, because it is, but simultaneously, there is also a great healing that is happening on the planet at this time. And we can connect into that place of healing and love if we allow it. So, what can we do when we feel helpless and hopeless in the world? Connect to that life spark that exists within yourself. That's where it is. It's not outside of you, it is inside of you. And all of these experiences are to get us to go within, to look at ourselves and to know that the solution and the peace that we seek is inside of ourselves. When we are able to calm the fear and the chaos of our own mind, the storms of our mind, we open up the space for listening. And when we are able to listen, we can connect to a place of calmness and a place of love that is available to us all. When we connect to that, that in and of itself is enough. We're not contributing more fear to the world. If watching television and listening to the news and talking about all of this is creating anxiety and fear within yourself, it is okay for you to let go of it. You do not have to hold on to the guilt and shame of needing to disconnect from that. It is still happening in the world, and it's still going to be there, whether you choose to watch it on the television or not. If watching the television is giving you anxiety, stop watching it. If you are not liking what you are watching, change the station. Changing the station helps you change your vibration. It's okay for you to do so, and in fact, you are being called upon this moment to do so. In this moment, it is each and every single one of our obligation to manage the energy that we carry. You can either add more fear to what is happening, or you can bring love into it. Bringing love into it opens up the opportunity for a solution. If most of us on the planet are able to hold that kind of energy, then we allow for some greater solution that can come into place. We are not all isolated and alone, even though we may feel it. Allow yourself to connect into something that is greater. Your belief in it might take some time, but just imagine, what if? What if there is that grid that I speak of that can help you? What if there is this energy that is available to you that can bring you peace? What if calming your mind may just bring you the sense of relief that you are asking for? It is through our awe and wonder that will open up and calm our mind. Sometimes we need to close our eyes so that we may truly see with our heart and with our soul. What can we do in this moment when we're feeling hopeless and helpless with the world? Tune in and quiet that storm in your mind. When we are able to do that within ourselves, we have an immediate impact on our immediate environment and family. When we are able to calm the anxiety and fear within ourselves, we are able to ripple out a different vibration. We can then open up a sense of calmness and safety within our children, a sense of calm and safety within our communities. If enough of us are able to do that and contribute that energy, it can shift and change. That is what we are called to. So, in this moment, when we heal ourselves, we contribute to the healing of the planet. Disconnect from the fear and choose to bring in grace instead. Just give yourself pause. Give yourself the space that may be needed to make this shift and this change. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for allowing me to share so much. Thank you for your patience while I'm able to reground, regroup, reconnect, reapply. Mhm. So, this time around, with the loss of my brother, and I know that I am but one person, and there are millions of us out here who are experiencing similar things, extraordinary losses and extraordinary fear. So let's combat that, and this is how. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your allowance of the sharing. And now that this initial video has been made, because I've been struggling with this for the longest time, I've attempted to make this video an umpteen number of times, but I guess it all happens in right time. So with that great deep faith in my connection, in my feeling the Blessed Mother, feeling that extraordinary love that is available and being sent to all of us. So, in that moment, with that energy that came through, so much to say about that. More to come. Thank you so much. I wish you all blessings. I wish you all safety. I wish you all the ability to know we're not alone. We have the ability to connect within ourselves and learn these tools. And it starts with the management of our mind. So when those thoughts of worry come in, just take a deep breath and bring yourself to the present moment. Bring yourself into the present moment. Thank you so much. So much more to learn and grow. Let's keep doing it together. Blessings.